getting to be kind of on the tail end of week 3, I wanted to give you a little bit of positive, productive feedback on your Real Deal Taco website submissions. So just to kind of preface the review that I'm about to go through, I am looking for things that make me go, So I've queued up all of your websites in another browser window, and I'm going to go through them one by one, and I'm going to poke around, and I'm going to navigate the site. And I'm looking for things that cause pause, that are a bit of a disconnect. I'm also looking for things, such as that could be a little bit more intuitive, or that aren't consistently styled or on brand, or have not taken into account the many concepts and techniques that you guys have been working on so far this month. So I've got those queued up, and I'm going to go through them. Now my hope is that you will watch this entire archive, not just the few minutes that's dedicated to your particular site. There really is so much that we can learn from one another, in seeing the design decisions that each of you made when giving the exact same material. But before we get started, I want you to really quick take some screenshots of your site for where it is right now. So in that week 4 revision project, I asked you guys to give me some before and after screenshots of the changes that you make. So I know a lot of times students will maybe hear this feedback and get started right away, but I want to make sure that you have those before screenshots that you're going to need for that week 4 assignment. So let's exit this keynote and jump on over to where I have all of your sites queued up in a browser window. All right, so here we go. Spoiler alert, there are going to be 10 different sites that we're going to review, and you're going to be amazed at how different they all are, even when you were all given the same materials and same branding package. So first up, what I immediately notice about this site is it's very clean and well organized. We've got clear branding information and a lot of good info here above the fold. My navigational options are home, locations, menu, news, about, and contact. And then I have a large image scrolling slider here, fresh, local, delicious. And then just a little bit of extra content down here, where we are, our food. So this is a little bit of teaser content that's going to take me to other places on the site that will drill down a little bit further. I've got a replication of the navigational options down here, some contact info, which is nice. It's cool that all this stuff is in the footer, because then it's available on every page of the website. And then I also have this fictitious business statement, just to let people know that Real Deal Tacos is not in fact a real truck. So, on this homepage, we've got very clear, concise information. It's a nice snapshot of what else is available here on the site. Stylistically on this page, the only thing I'll note is this sort of rounded container that the logo is in. Everything else on the page is very square, right? We've got these hard corners, so it's just a little stylistic inconsistency. Additionally, the navigation options up here are a little light in terms of the weight of the font, and so we see how nice that this fresh, local, and delicious pops up and stands out as we do here. I'd like to see maybe the navigational options have a little more weight to them, because that is such an important and pivotal part of the site. I'm going to jump next to the locations page, and so here I've got the schedule. Again, here we have another sort of rounded element with the corners, which is somewhat inconsistent with another, the other styles that you have applied here on this page. Or on the site in general. We've got our headings, Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and so on. So that's nice. It allows me to scan this information pretty quickly. One of the other things that I might do is make this a heading, a different kind of a heading, so that I can immediately see the difference between lunch and dinner. I can see that you've given it an italicized style, but visually it looks very similar to the text that it's sitting beside, so that emphasis doesn't really do as much. Also, what might be cool is a map here, and whether or not it's a real-time map or just something that shows the relative proximity of all these locations, that would be a good idea there. Jumping over to menu. So here I see we've got the section starters, tacos, sides, and all of this is organized in a grid layout. It looks really nice, clean. You've got your page titles. headings, subheadings, and then the descriptions, and all of that is very cleanly done and well laid out here on the page. Now, I'm seeing another stylistic inconsistency where, so you have this white background that the menu's on, but here on the locations page, we just have this opaque background. So, you're jumping from, wanting to bring through this texture versus not wanting to bring it through here. I would choose one way or the other and be consistent with that. On the news page, so here we see a few of the blog posts running into a little bit of an issue where the titling of this one is underneath the logo here, so just some rearranging or maybe some more spacing here on this element. And also what I'm seeing is kind of a different typeface, right? I would recommend you, stick with the same body font or body type on all of your pages, just as you would have your page titles be the same and your headings and subheadings be the same across the page. Jumping to the about, so here we have just a Meet the Chef, and again I'm just noticing some inconsistencies in the typeface, right? So this is very different than what we see here, and this red is it's off-brand, and again, it looks like you're not quite finished with this page yet because we have just some placeholder content here. So this page kind of sticks out a little bit as an anomaly on the site. Over to the contact page here, we have just a simple form, and then the places that we can connect online, which are great. And as I hover over these, I can see in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen that they are in fact linking out to Real Deal Taco locations, out there on the web, which is great. Overall, this site is it's a wonderful starting place, and with a few tweaks, it can get to a really strong place and show a nice example of strategic web design for your portfolio. So next up here, we've got a Real Deal Taco site. So the first thing that I notice on this page is that it is a little busy, and there are some issues with reading the text because it's overlaid on that large application of the logo. So it's a little difficult to see, but up here we have something that says Real Deal Tacos, best fish tacos in San Diego for real, and it's overlaid on the logo in such a way that makes it difficult to read. What I would recommend is, instead of having this logo here in the background, it's in a smaller application up here in the corner, and then you don't need this text because it will say Real Deal Tacos there. It's almost because of the white text on top of, what looks like a little bit of an off-white background. It's very difficult to see this navigation and to read it. And so, notice that as I'm scrolling here on this page, as I'm continuing to read through this information, I have to scroll back up to get to the navigation. It doesn't stay kind of anchored up here at the top of the page where I might hope. So what I'm seeing here is a whole bunch of dense paragraph text, and it is doing some weird line breaking, right? So why does it break after the word inspired here? Why does it say finally, comma, and break there? To me, this is an indication that this information was copied and pasted directly from one of the documents into this environment, and it retained certain line breaks that it had in the previous environment. And so, definitely one of the things that you need to do when bringing text from one place to another is make sure that number one, you're proofreading it, and then number two, people tend to write a lot more for a Word document or some sort of word processing document. But on a web page, remember, we're trying to streamline this text and present it in such a way that makes it easily scannable. The other thing here is that this page is really lacking a lot of visual imagery, so there's definitely an opportunity there. So jumping over to menu, and so here we see that the site takes a little bit of a turn because the logo now pops up here in the middle, and so that's different. And you want to be consistent from page to page because your navigation, where your logo is, where your links are, that needs to be consistent because that's always where people go back to make their next move, their next click. And if they can't figure out the system that you've created, they're going to leave your site, which is not what you want. So here you've organized this page in like a long scrolling column. We saw an example of a grid layout on the other page, which was more effective in using all of this space, right? So we've got all this extra space here. And so instead of having to scroll, we could read from left to right, these 3 items. The other thing about this is, pictures would be nice here as well. And so definitely an opportunity here to add some visual pizzazz to the page. Moving next to locations. So here, this is the rotating scheduled stops. And the feedback that I had for the menu page applies here as well. And that is that, instead of having these long scrolling columns, maybe leverage a grid layout where this information is in columns and rows. The other thing to note is that I do see some stylistic differences, right? So that we now have gray text, and this sans serif, or this sans serif font with this serif font, which is different than what we've seen on all the other pages. Jumping over to news and events. So this looks as if this information was copied straight from the Word document and posted here. News and events would represent better as a blog post, because it is time-sensitive information, and it is archival information. It's keyword-rich information, but not necessarily something that you want to have to constantly go in and be rearranging the order of these things so that the newest information is at the top and that the oldest is taken off. And a blog type widget module, depending upon what CMS you chose, it would call it something different, will allow for that, that time-sensitive kind of micro news type functionality. So what I'd like to see here is this page transformed into a blog, and then potentially also the the inclusion of some rich imagery. This is really dense text. It needs to be broken up in such a way that the details are easily seen and scannable. The other thing to note is here. This is a URL that is not meaningfully titled. It doesn't have a link, title, or name. I don't really have any idea, based up on this kind of gobbledygook of text, where this link is going to take me. It'd be nice if you could go in and make sure that all of your links are meaningfully titled to give your audience an idea of the information that they're going to find when they click on it. So scrolling back up, I'm going to go to contact. So here, just very basic page, and then just where we can find the Real Del Taco company on other places on the web, which is awesome. But again, lots of unused space here. I really want to encourage you to think about, like, how can I arrange the content in such a way that it's not all just kind of in a vertical scrolling layout. Last but not least, we've got the testimonials. And so here, it's just like a quick quote. And I can see that you've applied a style to it to make it look italic, as if it was something that was being said, which is great. But there's also other things you could do here, such as, add one of these to each page, give it a fun visual styling that then, maybe, insert it in between 2 blocks of large text to break it up and give it a visual, emphasis, so it can draw people's eyes there. There are several kinds of there are different ideas about the usefulness of testimonials on a website, especially when it is something that the owner has the ability to cherry pick the reviews, right? So if I'm a business owner, I'm only going to be including great reviews on the site. If I wanted something as a customer, something more objective, I might go to, say, Yelp or Google reviews. And so because as a user, I know that the owner picked only good reviews here, I'm less likely to sit down and read them all, because I'm just going to get the same information. It's great, it's great, it's great. And because of that, the chances are that someone's going to read through all of this is less. So as the web designer or the web strategist, if I want people to read these, maybe I split them up throughout the site. Maybe I give them more of a fun visual appearance. Maybe I give a little thumbnail, of the person who said it next to it. There's a lot of different ideas here, but it's really, just to kind of think about the scenario and how do you get people to want to pay attention to the content that you're sharing there on the site. So Next up, we've got another Real Deal Taco site. Again, like I said, spoiler alert, there are going to be 10. So here we've got clear branding information and a clear navigational path, home, food, news, where are we, and contact. On the home page here, very clean, simple layout, a bit of information about the site. It's not overwhelming. It's definitely been streamlined a bit. We've got that fictitious business statement that we were looking for. And then we've got the social media icons down here. But as I hover over them, I do see that they are in fact linking to Wix locations. So that would be a disconnect, right? If I was a customer and I clicked on it, it went to Wix, I would, it would be a cause for pause. But in this case, you do have links that you could link these out to the Real Deal Tacos. And even if the Real Deal Taco links didn't work or those pages were down, then I would just, as a user, go, oh, their page is down. I wouldn't have that kind of confusing, like, why is this linking to Wix? Also on this page, I do appreciate the inclusion of the food truck imagery here. We have the logo overlay on it, but it's a little it's a little contradictory just in terms of, we see that it says Heavenly Sweet and there's a dog and it said Street Sweets here. And so while like conceptually this works because it's a food truck, the extra details that we see, on this truck in particular, do let us know that it's not in fact the right truck. And so there is a bit of a disconnect there as well. Jumping next over to food. I'm going to go ahead and select that. Here I've got starters, and so I like that this designer has included these headings and then the subheadings to make it easy for us to scan and see. One thing I will say is that the style of the text, the typography, is different than what we saw here. It's very visually different. And so you want to be consistent with that from page to page. You're just, your plain paragraph text or your, plain body font should be the same. I do like, the other thing is it's a different color. So here we've got black and here we've got gray. This kind of condensed text here is great for headings, subheadings, but when you get into paragraph text, it makes it a little bit harder to read, just with so much text so close together. So I definitely love it as a page title and then possibly like a subheading. But as far as like body text or body font, it is a little bit harder to read there. We have the imagery on this one, which looks great. I like the inclusion of it. I will say that just for consistency's sake and the scrolling, that the subheadings or the section headings should be all aligned on the same plane, because in English we're reading from left to right, so as we're scanning our eyes are looking in this direction here. But this page is looking really nice. I like the food, and I also want to comment on the way that the images have been cropped so that they're the same width, which allows, you to retain more of a grid layout here. Under news, we have what looks just like a page that has a lot of text, right? And so what I'd like to see is this transformed into a blogging module for the reasons that we talked about in a previous review, just that news is dated information, and that, when May 7th comes and goes, this information isn't necessarily going to be relevant. And so as an owner or business is adding new content to the site, the workflow with that is just that with the blog, when you add new stuff, it pushes the old stuff down and it doesn't delete it, it just archives it. So then you retain that rich keyword information, associated with SEO on your site. Again, on here we can see that, while I really love this typeface just as kind of a choice for a lot of paragraph text, it is more difficult to read. Where are we? So where can you find us? So one thing to notice here is that on these pages, you're giving me kind of a different sizing of all of these kind of headings or titles. So these should be consistent from page to page. So if it's, let's just say, for example, 48 point on one page, have it be consistent as your page title, 48 point across the board. Here we've got kind of a scrolling, a long vertical scroll. I appreciate the use of, the blue to kind of separate this area here. Maybe even make the days a little bit bigger just to give it even more of a kind of a separation. But thinking that you could also leverage more of a grid layout on this page so that all of the information isn't on a scroll, that I could see it in this available space over here and here. Additionally, a map might be nice. I know that there are no specific addresses here, but maybe pin drops to show the relative proximity to different places. And then last but not least, we've got Contact Us. Simple form, the information here. Again, these icons are linking to Wix locations, so you're going to want to update that to Real Deal Tacos. This is a fresh and clean site. There's a lot that's really working here, and with a few tweaks, it can be even stronger. So on this website, we've got clear branding information, a call to action here to call. We've got these social media links that are in fact linking to the Real Deal Taco locations, clear navigational options with home, menu, locations, events, and about, and then I can search the site. A nice large banner image, and then the Find Us Now, which is cool, which I'm assuming is going to take us, yes, it looks like it, to the locations page. But one thing that was interesting about that is it opened up in a new browser window. And, not quite sure about the intent behind that choice, but, if you are linking someone to somewhere on the same site, and it's not like a PDF or an external document that you want to open, generally that's going to stay in the same browser window. So I'm going to scroll down here. We've got menu, locations, events. So this is all looking really nice, and just an alternate way to get to those places. And so I really enjoy what this designer has done here, because it's not just a long list of these testimonials. It's a rotating kind of slider image. So there's dynamic movement here. It's drawing my attention. There's anticipation as, what's the next one going to say? And so this is a great example of how you can use those testimonials in such a way to, draw attention and get people to look at them. So down here in the footer, we have a sitemap, which is awesome, branding information, there's that fictitious statement, and then the hours of operation. So it's nice that all of this is available here in the footer of the page, because that means it's available on every page we go to. I'm going to jump next to menu. And so here, again, a nice, large image of the food. I'm going to click through, right? So I have the option to do so with these navigational controls. Here I might do a banner overlay of maybe something that says menu, because I can see, because of this dark text, that it does indicate I am on the menu page, but something here just might also be nice as a page title. Here we have this all aligned left, and it's very cleanly done. We've got these section separators, we've got these kind of subheadings to indicate each individual item, and then the ingredients in a different text. So all of that is reading very clearly. This page could benefit from a little additional imagery, but it's very well done. We have the option to download the menu here as well. Scrolling back up to the top of the page, let's look over here for locations. And so again, we've got a nice large banner image, but maybe something across the top here that says locations, just because looking at the area that's available to me above the fold, which is what, before I have to start to scroll, it's limited, the information, especially as to where I am or what can I expect before I even have to scroll. So here we've got the hours and locations. We've got a nice column here. These are separated with an emphasized visual style, which is great. Got a lot of empty space over here, so wondering if you might want to lay this in more of a grid layout, or include a map over here with pin drops of these locations, or if you wanted to mock up some sort of real-time indication of where they are via GPS, like maybe it's one location. Make sure to specify this is where we are right now, just because when we see all of these locations, you want to make sure that if you're pointing something out on a map, it's purposeful and instructive. On the events page, let's see, we're loading that up. let's see what we got here. We've got a nice calendar, and I can search and find for events. So here we've got this one, and it's on the calendar, and it gives me just the essential information. This is really beautifully done, because you had a whole bunch of text to describe all of this, but really, this is really what people want to know. Where are you going to be? What's going on? What is the specific information? So this is very a nice way to interpret the news and events. On the About page. So here we just got a little bit of info. This is certainly a streamlined version of kind of a longer uh, saga about Bob and Brenda and their love for fish tacos. So you've done a nice job of breaking up this text. This page is well balanced. You've included an image here, just to kind of personalize this and allow us to kind of connect with the owners of the truck. So overall, this site is very well done, very clean. With a few tweaks, it could be even stronger. So here we go. We've got, this one's interesting because it's the first one we've looked at that was built on WordPress. I've seen a few different CMSs pop up so far. So here we've got our tagline at the top, our logo, clear navigation, home about menu, find us and contact. So the logo itself, the blue here, looks a little dark. It's not offering great color contrast between the background and the artwork itself. You can see how this white pops out. You have the vector artwork for all of these branding files, and so I would recommend, if you want to, open up Illustrator or another graphics program and turn this blue into white, and then it would pop really well up here at the top. And then having it say Real Deal Tacos underneath is just redundant because we could read here clearly that it said Real Deal Tacos. So we've got a nice image. We're on the home page, a little bit of info. I'm scrolling down, links to the About, the Contact, and upcoming events there. Locate us. So UC San Diego, follow us. These are linking to the Real Deal taco locations, which is awesome. And then the disclaimer. So all of this is really well laid out, and there's a clear navigational path between each one of these content areas. I'm going to go next to the About page, and as this loads in, this is a really big banner image space, and so it does take up quite a bit of the area above the fold. I don't really get much of anything other than that image and the navigation, and so for that reason, I might include images that are a bit more interesting, potentially. I know that you didn't have tons to work with in that Google folder, but, just kind of conceptually, understanding that these areas for like large background banner images, if you're going to use that much space for an image, that, make sure that it's kind of a good sell. Scrolling down, we've got our story. So here I'm seeing like a whole bunch of dense paragraph text, and it looks like it's about the almost the complete story. I would encourage this designer to look for ways to break this up a little bit more, just because what we know about people is they don't read a bunch of text online. So how can you streamline this? How can you do call outs, or maybe a pull quote, or turn this into a bulleted list somehow, or emphasize, certain or the most important areas. I do like the widget of the Real Deal Tacos Facebook page, which is cool because that allows us to kind of get some of the, real-time information of what's going on there in social media. Let's see, under the menu. So here we've got, a nice banner image. I'm scrolling down, and I've got like a nice, slideshow here. And also what I appreciate is the attention to detail to label these, so that when I'm looking at this, oh, blackened fish taco, that's the one that I want to order when I get up there. So that extra bit of detail is like dotting your I's and crossing your T's in terms of web design. It's also great keyword rich content that will help the optimization of your site. So here we've got your headings, your sections, and then individual items, and then the description. The description has been italicized, which is great. because it differentiates that between the item itself. But I might, if you could, apply some sort of visual style here to make these stand out, so it's more easily, you can scan and jump from item to item, and just clearly distinguish between those. This page looks great. It's very clean. Again, you might be able to make more use of the available space if you're doing a grid layout. So something you might want to try for the upcoming revision. So here, news. It looks like on this page we've got a few blog posts, and leave a comment. That's kind of what is leading me to believe that these are blog posts and posted on, so it's dated information. So this is well done. There's some of the details here and then this information. But so like this looks, again, pretty much exactly like what was provided to you in the resource files. There is an opportunity for you to go through and say, what is essential here? Like what is, what do my audience members or my potential clients need or want to read. So just know that as part of this project, you have the license to go in and to make strategic decisions about what to include in the site. Also here, this is just a URL, so it's not a meaningfully titled link. What you might do there instead is learn more about the unleashed competition, and then have that entire statement be a link that goes off to that site, because this is one of the cardinal sins of our 7 deadly sins in the editing for the web classes, just having straight up URLs here. So you want to do a bit more for your audience to give them the context to know what happens when they click on that link, where they're going to go. Under Find Us, so here we have the hours of operation, rotating schedule of stops. All of that looks great. It's well laid out, easy to navigate. Again, the inclusion of a map here to show relative proximity, or where they are right now. You could mock that up as well. And then last but not least, on the Contact Us page, we have, again, the hours of operation and a simple form. Use the form below to email us or to get in touch by calling. I like that you include, that bit of information there, and then the additional way that they can get in touch. Overall, this site is, very well done. Just a few considerations. I realize that, you're given a certain amount of information and resources to build this. So some of the ideas that are, that I've shared here are not necessarily, it could be information that you use when you're building your next site, and maybe not exactly what you do on the revision here, but just offering you some ideas for expansion on what you've created. Real Deal Taco site. Spoiler alert, here we go again. Real Deal Taco logo. This is a project for school. So I like that, that is kind of like a fictitious disclaimer there, but I'm hoping that it's also included in this information. So it is down here at the bottom. So here we go. Home, menu, about, contact us, and images. So scrolling down the page here, we see, kind of generally find us around town. And we've got all of, the locations here. All of this is the same text, and although the days of the week are in all caps, there's really not enough spacing between these to give a clear distinction to the eye. And then also, if these could be given a slightly different visual appearance, it would make it a bit easier to scan and read. Over here we've got some of the news, so some of the freshest summer recipes. I can see that these are blog posts, which are great, and I like that you kind of just give us the title and a snippet and the opportunity to read more. This is a great way to include kind of like summary bits of information here on the home page, instead of like putting everything everywhere. An opportunity to check out more of the images there. So here we've got, it looks like this is just an image, right? So these aren't separate icons. And so what this designer has done has mocked up basically that you could find Real Deal Tacos on these other locations online, which is fine for this project. Obviously, I would expect these to be linked, but if it's one image, then you can't link one image to 3 locations. But potentially something to expand on for the revision of the project. On the menu, so here we're jumping. I really like the front and center application of this logo. It might be a little big just because it pushes so much of this information down here on the page. And so what we're seeing here is we've got the menu, and it's cleanly laid out, and it's got nice spacing between the different sections. I'd like to see a little more color infused here. Real Deal Tacos is fun and fresh and lively, and so far really the only color we're seeing is up here in the logo and with these design elements. Additionally, there are opportunities to add more images throughout the site, not just in an area called images. One thing to note is the center alignment of all of this text. Generally it is harder for us to read things that are center aligned because we read from left to right in English, and when our eyes wrap to the new line, if the new line starts at a different place every time, it just takes more effort to locate that next line. So my recommendation here is, instead of a long kind of scrolling menu, to leverage maybe more of a grid layout here, and have these things be left aligned, which would facilitate more of that scan that we're talking about. Here under Contact Us, we've got just a simple form. And here it looks as if these are areas that are linking out. These words are linking out to the various places online that you can find these guys on social media. So one of the cool things about icons is that they are a quick visual indication, and somewhat universal. We know what the Facebook icon looks like. We know what the Twitter little Tweety bird looks like, and so it's a quick, immediate visual representation that would be nice to include here, other than just the words themselves. So, well, just like you have here at the bottom of the page. And then last but not least, we've got the images. So here we've got the pictures of the food, and boy, they look great. And I really like kind of the collage aspect in the way that this is laid out here. And I just want to see what happens when I click on one. And when I do, it looks as if it opens it up in a larger light box type application. What I'd like to see here is the inclusion of some metadata. So either a title or a description here, because when I'm looking at this as a customer and I'm like, oh, this is the best looking taco I've seen all day, this is the one I want to order when I go up to that store. I don't know what it is. Is it the blackened fish taco? Is it the chipotle shrimp? That'd be something that would be helpful, as additional information that you could provide your customers there. Overall, this site is an amazing jumping off point, and looking forward to seeing how the feedback is incorporated into the next revision. Real Deal Taco site here. We've got looks like we've got our social media information up here at the top, and as I'm hovering over it, I can see in the bottom left hand corner of the screen that it is in fact linking out to those places on the web, which is great. We've got our branding information here. The hours of operation, a little bit of kind of like a quote, and home menu location, our story, special events. And then we've got our fictitious statement down here. All right, so there's a lot of information available to me here on the home page, which is great because it's a good starting point, but it is kind of visually, it's a little overwhelming to start. The red is a bit more impactful. It's drawing my attention. If you can refer back to your aesthetics class, red is attention grabbing. Sometimes it means danger, and our eyes are drawn to it, just like they are drawn to a stop sign. And so for that reason, I'm drawn first to the hours, and then over here to this, thinking that perhaps the branding information is getting a little lost in this sea of red here. Additionally, you're applying like a different kind of style to this. You've given me like a couple of layers of text here that I'm not seeing elsewhere. So that's a kind of stylistically stand out, and one that's okay, because if you're trying to draw my attention here, you've done it, but it also makes it a little bit harder to read, and so for that reason, the drop shadowing or the the different things behind it, just make it a little bit more difficult. I think your instincts are right here, but to kind of clean it up and make it a little bit easier to read. The social media is great up here, but I'm just seeing like a lot of different colors. Like, so this blue is different than this blue, is different than this blue, and we've got the black and red. So, the branding is being compromised a bit. What I might do is move these social media icons potentially over here, and potentially move this contact information over here, shrink it down a little bit on both sides just to give this branding information the most prominence up here. So scrolling down, we've got these options. We've got our story, which I see is a link, and I'm going to click on it, and it interestingly pops up in a instead of like a new page, it's a pop-up. And here it is just basically a copy and paste job of what was available to you in that resource folder, and it's all center aligned. And so there's a number of things that need to happen here. The first one is that care needs to be taken to streamline this information and not have it be so dense. Next, the center alignment of the text makes it incredibly difficult to read. We in English read from left to right, and so it is an easier read on us when information is aligned there to the left. And then last but not least, even the container that you've put it in, you're not really observing a lot of padding or breathing room. You see how much space is available up here, but it goes right out to the edges of these corners. I'm going to draw a little shape here. Your text shouldn't go outside of this area that I've drawn, just to make sure that you're giving adequate space between the element and the container that that element is in. Additionally, pictures, right? Like, as studies have shown, people aren't sitting down to read a lot of text on sites. So here we've got this special events, and we've got the option here we've got the locations and find out more. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and it's going to be a pop-up as well. So all the feedback that I just applied previously applies here as well. Again, if you refer back to some of the reviews I've done here, this information would be best shared in like a calendar or a blogging type module that will auto-archive that information as you are putting new and fresh content out there. Jumping next over to the menus page. So here, visually very different, right? Because we've gone all blue on the background, whereas before over here we were white. You want to make the experience from page to page be as consistent and as similar as possible. So we've got our starters, and this is all done nicely in a grid type layout, because here you'd have the images and then you'd have the description next to it. This one doesn't have the price and the dotted line thing, so it's standing out. So definitely a place that you could spend a little more time adding imagery and the consistency, right, with the pricing on things. But overall, this is, a well-styled and laid out page, but it does need some work. So the other thing too is that this red text, aside from being off-brand, it's difficult to read red on top of blue. You can see how this white pops, and it's very easy for us to read. So that's something that you want to consider, is the readability of your color choices. And then last but not least, where to find us. So here we have, these different locations. Something interesting is going on here with this blue block and then this kind of blue banner. Stylistically, it again is a different layout completely from page to page. You're going to look for a bit more consistency there. So here's, where I can find, the truck. It looks like these are links. I'm going to go ahead and select one to see what happens. Okay, it pops up, and then it's popping me directly to that map location. So that's really cool, and functionality that we haven't seen on other sites just yet. One thing to note though is, again, off-brand with the color. So now we've got like a seafoam or like a Tiffany blue here and black, but it is linking to the San Diego Zoo, so the functionality on that is working well. What I might say here is, unless I hovered over this, I wouldn't know that those were links. It gives me no indication. So potentially what I would encourage here is a little bit of contextual information that is instructive, that says click on one of the locations to see a map, right? So when I click on this here, I get the awesome location. Branding needs to be updated here on this page. But overall, this site has got a lot of great ideas and inspirations in it, and with a few tweaks, it's going to be even better in week 4. So here we go. Real Deal Tacos once more. Clear branding information. We've got our social media up here, and it is looking as if they are headed out to those places online. So one thing to note is that as I'm hovering over them, you can see in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen that this is going to Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, but then there aren't locations for Pinterest and Snapchat. But what's cool about this is that this designer likely included that information that they want to get Real Deal on those locations in part of the strategy. So they're just mocking this up here. And so for that reason, I understand the thought process of the inclusion as to why some of these are linked and some of them aren't. It looks like we've got home, menu, locations, news, gallery, and follow us. Kind of stylistically, your links are the same text as what we're seeing here, just in terms of color and size and style. And here we've got like these lines, and we've got lines here, but they're of a different weight. And so I see that as being, likely like a style that you're trying to infuse, but it's inconsistently done with the lines. And I would say that with the text, you want the navigation to stand out more as different. And so potentially making this bigger and giving it a little bit of emphasis in another way might be nice there. So here we've got an image slider. So hungry yet. I know that it's probably going to start with a sentence, right? So here we've got the truck, and then are you hungry yet? And that has that's a fun little, you've intrigued me a little bit long enough just to wait a little bit longer to see maybe what that would say. So that's an interesting strategy, and I can appreciate what you did there with that. I'm going to pause it here if I can on this image just to note I appreciate the inclusion of the food truck, but it is so very obvious if anyone spends more than 1 second on it that it is that like Street Sweets truck and that it says New York on it. So a disconnect there. Appreciate the effort to grab an image of a food truck. Obviously, if this was a real situation, you'd have more resources to pull from, but bit of a disconnect. Scrolling down what they're saying about us. So this is like a stellar example of what I was talking about with the testimonials. So instead of copying and pasting just the text and putting them one after another on the page, there's so much that you can do visually in terms of styles to make this something interesting. And this is a perfect example of that. So, we've got these now little like graphics of these people and then what they said. So it's not boring text anymore. It's highly visual, and it's something that draws our eye and makes us want to read it. Awesome background image here, and again another testimonial. So here's another example of how you might do that. It's the quote and then who said it underneath. It's not just text on a page. It's turned into a content area and an element that is drawing our attention with intrigue. So we're not just tacos. So we've got the great promotional of these items here. Really trying to highlight the well-roundedness of what's available at the truck, and then how to find our truck. So here we're at a different place every day. Click here to find us wherever we go, right? And so I like the contextual information that lets people know we're going to be all over the place. So click here. So I'm assuming that's going to take us to the locations page, rotating schedule of stops. So here we've got this information. The alignment of this looks interesting just because we've center aligned these, and these are all left aligned here. And so we've got kind of this unused space, wondering what this might look like in a more grid type layout instead of kind of the column that we see here. And then we've got, a map down here of, I'm assuming where we are right, this very minute, but maybe we can include a little bit of information there that says, this is where we are right now. Even if we're, mocking that up, it gives us the contextual information to understand why are we showing a map of just this one location. I'm going to go through these pages in order now. So here we go to menu. So we have, actually I'm just noting, so I'm assuming that this is kind of like your page title, and it's in this great kind of brush script. But then here on this page, we have this typeface as the as potentially the title of the page, and wondering kind of what is you know, what is the norm, what is going to be the standard by which you know, all of your pages are laid out and consistently styled that way. So let's see, here we go, menu. So here we've got, this is all laid out really beautifully in a grid, and everything, we've got imagery, which is awesome, and makes things look more appetizing, and it's easy to read, and it's easy to go from section to section here. So this page is really well done, and I especially appreciate the starred items, which indicate gluten-free. I'm looking for the legend on that, right, though, because like they're starred, but does that mean gluten-free, or does that mean that it's a special item? So you've set up a system for something, but I need to understand, what does this star mean? Because it does say down here gluten-free as well. So you've given that to me in 2 locations, like if that's true, right? And also, are only the ones in boxes gluten-free, or are those specials? So I don't know if I'm just not seeing it, but something for you to think about there. Like, you've set up a system for me to understand, but it's giving me a couple of ideas because I don't have a legend to understand what the star means. Let's see here, the news and about page. So here we have what just looks like a collection of, you know, just a bunch of text, right? So here we have copy and paste job, dense paragraph text, and not a ton of information. Here we've got a link that's not meaningfully titled. It's just a gobbledygook URL, and so more care needs to be taken with this information, potentially leveraging it in a blogging type format, and doing a little bit more. Potentially the inclusion of images as well would be nice. So kind of where we've been. This designer is doing a lot of really awesome extra promotion and work here. So there's the inclusion of a lot of additional content, which is great, and is rounding out the site in a really beautiful way. And so here again, I'm seeing like the news and about. To me, that those are very different pages with very different functions. The news is regularly updated, and the about is pretty evergreen. And so, you know, here on the home page, I'm going to jump back, and we don't see much of the about information here, but you know, if you're looking for a place for it and you don't want it to be on its own page, you know, grabbing a streamlined version of this dense paragraph text and sharing it on the home page wouldn't be a bad idea. But again, needs to be broken up, needs to be streamlined, needs to be more easily scanned. Just the web strategy part of this activity needs to be applied in this area here. Next up, gallery. So here we're seeing lots of awesome pictures, right? And I like the way that they're collaged on the page. A little, and this is me just being picky because my eyes they're just very, they are drawn to that sort of thing. Just that this image doesn't align down here, that the spacing between this and this isn't the same as this and this. And again, this is me just pointing out these things because this designer is obviously paying a lot of attention to detail already. And so I think that this kind of feedback would be helpful for somebody who is already so detail oriented. I'm going to click on one just to see what happens. So it opens up into kind of a light box effect here. And this is some feedback I've applied earlier to some other sites. Contextual information, what is this taco I'm looking at? Because it looks delicious and this is the one I want to order when I go, but I don't know. Is it the blackened fish taco, or is it the chipotle shrimp? Or maybe it's carne asada. I don't know, but it looks amazing and I want to know. I'm kind of guessing that that's tres leches. But you see what I'm saying? That's keyword-rich information that also helps with the optimization of the site. Last but not least, we've got follow us. And so these are the locations that you can get to us and where they're coming. So this is nice because it explains that that is part of the strategy. And that was something that I could infer, basically from what, the way that you'd laid this out, which was awesome. But thank you for including that there as well. This site rocks, a few minor things here and there, just to focus on, but there's some awesome inspiration and really nice execution in what we see here. Here we go, Real Deal Tacos, clear branding information. We've got our social media, which are in fact linking out to Real Deal location on the web. Find us today. So that's going to take us to the contact page. Home, our story, menu, news, find us, and contact. This is beautifully done in terms of what information is available to us. Branding information, social media, where we can immediately be found, tagline, clear navigation, and just as an added bonus, some image slider down here. I'm going to scroll down the screen here, and so this designer has also done a really awesome job of leveraging these testimonials in a visually cool way. So we've got Libby and Amelia and Randy, and it's even cool that the images are styled, the same, the black and white, the circular. So this is very well done and is a great example of how to use testimonials in a visually interesting way to break up text and to be an important content component of the site. So here we've got just some images down here, social media again, and that fictitious business statement. I'm going to jump next over to our story. So here we've got some pictures of the chefs. And then a bunch of dense text here. So this needs to be broken up a little bit more, streamlined. How can you do what you did with testimonials here, right? How can you call out a certain bit of this in a visually interesting way to draw our attentions to the most important parts? Over to menu. So here we see we have our sections, and this is laid out in a grid format, which is nice, easily scannable. The imagery is a nice touch to add because it's visually enticing and makes us all hungry. One thing I will say is that I like this typeface a lot, but anytime you're using a decorative font, especially something that's scripted, generally when you are doing an all caps version of it, the capitalized little letters in a scripted font are they're more ornate, right? They have more tails and curly cues and are just more elaborate. And then when you do an all caps of a scripted font, you basically have every letter being kind of elaborate, which makes it a little bit more difficult to read. And so, for that reason, I would recommend, if you're going with a scripted font in your headings or subheadings, that you do not use all caps in those instances. Under news, it looks like we've got the blog post here. So this is very well done in that I have a kind of snippet of information and then I can read more. So I'm going to go here to the Unleashed by Petco. And so here I just see, a snippet of information. But again, and this is, what I'm seeing on most of these sites is a copy and paste job. And not much attention being paid to this information. It's coming to me exactly how it was given to you. And not going through the filter of what needs to be included in a meaningful way on a website here. We're seeing these URLs without meaningful link titles. What might be better here? Find out more about the Unleashed Surf competition by Petco at their website. And, have the word website be the link instead of this gobbledygook URL. So definitely an opportunity here, potentially also a cool place to add pictures. Under Find Us, so we've got locations and hours. I like the map. And so what I was talking about before was that if you're going to include one location, a picture of one location when you're saying we are we rotate between all of these locations, is that you need this, right? You need this bit of information that says, hey, this is where we are right now. Because even if this is mocked up for the purposes of this assignment, it would give your visitor or your viewer the idea that this is the information they need to pay attention to and that they could have confidence there. So last but not least, under the Contact Us page, just a simple form and a phone number and an invitation to get in touch. This site is really, really well done. There's a lot of great ideas here, but a few things that just need to probably just spend a little bit more time on. I know that this is a big undertaking in terms of an assignment, but this site is very well put together. So last but not least, this is our last of 10 Real Deal Taco sites. So here we've got the branding information, story, testimonials, menu, order online, events, contact, and connect. And we've got the brand and what looks like a large banner image, organic, friendly, ocean-inspired Mexican cuisine. And then see menu and order online. So these two buttons are actually kind of difficult to see just because of the busyness of the background, but they're easy to see when they're filled in. So that's just a quick style change that you could make that would have this information be more usable here on the page. We've got our fictitious statement and then some contact information. What I will say is that when you guys are thinking about what types of images to include, you think, oh, they serve chips and they serve salsa and tacos and things, and that is true, but the way that you would receive those tacos wouldn't be on plates, right? They're going to be in little plastic or in paper boats with tissue paper, and so by eating with silverware, and like this looks like a fine Mexican meal, but it doesn't look ocean inspired. And so again, I understand that the resources that were provided to you were limited in terms of what you could choose from. But when you're going out and you're finding things to include in your projects, because in media, many times when you get involved in things, you're not given everything that you need, and there's a certain amount of you having to go out and find what would be the best options. And so when you're doing that, be very thoughtful about what makes sense here, right? We talked about this at one point in one of the lectures that, sometimes students tend to choose beach imagery to include these sites. And the beach imagery is, that students have included in the past look like it's, from a Corona commercial, which we all know is very tropical. Well, San Diego is not tropical. The Pacific Ocean is not crystal clear and calm. It's actually sort of violent. In terms of the surf and the water and the jagged hillsides. And so, you are, another thing that you should be doing with this is challenging yourself to look for the appropriate images to go with whatever the project is. So I'm going to jump from page to page here. One thing I'll say before I go is that there's not enough padding or inset padding for this logo within this container, right? It's butting right up against the edges. It needs more breathing room. There should be, consistent white space around this logo inside this white container. The other thing to note is that the kind of tannish color in gold is a bit off brand. So here we have very cool color combinations, and everything else on the page is very warm. So let's jump to our story. So here we see a nice large background image, and we have Real Deal Taco. So that's a bit redundant in that we've got the branding information here, and then this shows up here. And then we have our story. So what I'm seeing is a bunch of just very dense text, and text that's wrapping weirdly. So why does it say San and then break the line Diego and then combined break the line, their love. So what this tells me is that this information was copied and pasted from one environment into another, and it retains some of the styles or the breaks from the PDF that it was in or the Word document that it was in that, got pulled into this area, and that, at the very least, you're needing to making sure that you're going through and proofreading, what you copied from one environment into the next, but then doing the additional job of running it through the filter of web strategy to say that people aren't going to read this much dense paragraph text. They just aren't. How do I break this up and turn it into scannable information? And that is the essence of this project. So here we have, just like a few more pictures, which are nice and go well with, the theme of, the fish tacos. So jumping next to testimonials. So here, we just have a page that includes, just the text on the page. We've seen in sites like this one over here, how you can, and also this one, how you can break up that testimonial information into a visual, interesting way, right? So here with the kind of illustrations, here with the photos, and just make it so it's not just text on the page anymore. And there's a number of reasons why we do that. Because if I'm a user and I go to a website, I know that the owner has cherry-picked this information. So it's only going to be good review, good review, good review. And I don't need to waste my time going through all of the bad or all of them, because they're not going to be bad. There's not going to be one that's different. And so you're not likely to get my attention there unless you do something to draw it there specifically. The other thing that I'll comment on with that is the kind of the order of what we see here. The most important thing to a Real Deal Taco site visitor is one of two things. What are they serving and where are they? And so for that reason, menus and the location information should be, a more prominent, have a more prominent pole position or display within the navigation structure here. So under menu, so here, again, I just want to comment on the very warm color palette. It's not that I don't like these colors, it's just that they are not on brand, right? So this is cool blue colors, and these are very warm and rich. This page is laid out very nicely with the items in this kind of grid type format. These section headings make it very easy to jump from one place to the next, which is awesome. There is an opportunity, for the addition of pictures here that would make that page look nice. So the order online is interesting because it's as if you've mocked up the functionality for that to be available, but it's not necessarily a service that Real Deal Taco has said that they offer. And so in this instance, I would not include this page on the website, because that's not a service that the business is currently offering. Additionally, like and I'm just commenting on kind of styles right now, the gold background color it's a little hard to read. Even with the white text, I mean, you can see over here kind of when this goes gray that it's almost impossible to read. So these are things that you want to pay attention to is, are the styles and the colors and the things that I'm choosing on my pages making it easy for my users to do what they need to do. So I'm going to go here to the event page. So here we've got, it looks like just a copy and paste of information from the documents that were provided to you into this environment. And so more care needs to be taken to run this through that filter we're talking about of how to be choosy about what to include in the way that you present this to people so that they can easily find what they're needing. How does this support them on their mission? Here you have events, Real Deal Taco, and then the title of this is actually pretty small. And then the title of this one is actually pretty small and not visually distinct in any way from any of the other information that we see. This is the information that I'm scanning for. If I know that I'm on the events page, I don't need for it to say events everywhere down the page, because what I'm looking for then are the specific events. So that's something, this needs to be shared on a blogging module or a blogging page, which would allow you to timestamp this information and do, interesting things with it by tagging it or categorizing the information. You could put everything that has to do with dogs in one category, everything that has to do with art in one category. There's just more you can do when you are leveraging the different types of features and functionalities within this content management system. Next, going to go to the Contact Us page. So here we've got locations. one thing that I'll say is it says contact us, but the first thing that it says is locations. And the locations, the word location is more intuitive of where are you than contact us. And so I would recommend to call this locations, right? And then to separate this text and make it more visually appealing or visually distinct, right? Because it's all squished together. It's hard to distinguish. And the only thing that separates these as visually different is that this is in all caps. But what if there was more spacing between them? What if Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays were in a different color and were a little bit bigger so that my eyes could, hop there very easily? Under the Contact Us area, we've got a map, but it's just a generic map of San Diego. And anytime on this Real Deal Taco scenario that you're showing a single location, when you know that this truck is going to be out and about at multiple locations, you are giving us the idea that this is potentially where they are at the current moment, which may or may not be true. So it needs to be instructive and say, this is where we are right now, because otherwise it leaves too much open to interpretation. Last but not least, we've got the Connect with Us. And so here we've got these social media icons, and I'm linking, as I'm hovering over them, I can see that they're linking to other locations on the web to find Real Deal Tacos. I would say that this information here doesn't need its own page. It could definitely be included in the footer of the site, which means it would be available on every page that I click on. Or additionally, it could also be placed nicely down here on ways to contact us. There's some, great thoughts and a nice start with what we've got going on here, but definitely, areas that need to be strengthened in the week 4 revision. And so you guys, this has been a very thorough review of these Real Deal Taco sites. I'm very impressed with what you created here, because this is a big project, and maybe for many of you the first time that you've done this. If you are still listening at this point, high five, because as I said at the start of this, there's so much that we can learn from the designs and the choices that each of us make, and kind of going through and taking a look. I'm hoping that you're able to extrapolate the idea and the essence of what we're talking about and apply it into those portfolio sites that you're creating this weekend. Looking forward to it.